G'day everyone, it's SDS SuperCoach providing SuperCoach content for you. I'm here to present a Melbourne Demons team preview, and I'm joined by a good mate of mine, Zach. How are you doing, mate?
Not too bad, Stephen. Not too bad.
Good to hear, mate. I know you're a big D supporter, and uh, we're hoping a big 2023 for your club. Now, quick disclaimer: so this is going to upload first, and then I'm going to upload a St Kilda one tonight as well. So I will just put in a disclaimer. When I recorded, I was a bit intoxicated, had a few too many waters during the recording. So if that isn't your cup of tea, then maybe it's not that sort of thing. And also it was a pretty long one. So just keep that in mind. We'll see if we can keep this a little bit shorter, Zach. So, all right, I reckon let's get straight into it. Now, as you can see, I've currently got Oliver in my team. Probably not too much of a surprise, but you probably tell us a little bit about the 700K man, the second most expensive player in the game. Are we expecting a very similar output for 2023, Zach?
Most likely. I mean, the numbers, this is 2 years in a row he's put in a pretty good performance throughout the whole season, probably arguably being our most important and best player. Just racks up the footy. I think his ability defensively as well when it comes to tackling, which you get a lot of points for, he's improved that a lot. And I feel like that gets a bit unnoticed when it comes to his scoring because obviously a lot of contested possessions, a lot of effective possessions as well, which is going to accumulate points. But I think people don't. I think people underestimate the tackling, the amount of tackles he's averaging a game, and the amount of points he gets through that. So it's probably fitting that he's 700K at the moment, and I don't see him dropping off too much. I guess I can see teams tagging either him or Petrarca throughout the year. But whoever gets tagged, the other one's going to score pretty big, so because you can't tag them both at the same time. I don't think so. I think he'll still have a pretty big year.
Yeah, it's great to hear. I'd say the one concern, probably for Oliver, for me at this point in time, would be that he could be more of a tag target due to Petrarca potentially spending a bit more time off that half forward line, where Oliver's really sort of the main man if he's the only one in that midfield with Petrarca, without Petrarca. So that's probably one to keep in mind. Now, I want to touch on Max Gawn. Now, he isn't very popular at this point in time in pre-season due to the acquisition of Brodie Grundy. What sort of role do you expect the two rucks to sort of play for 2023, Zach?
I kind of see it. If you're worried about getting Max Gawn, I don't think you should because I've got a feeling the reason why we recruited Brodie Grundy was to replace literally Luke Jackson's role, which was not really hurting Gawn's scoring really at all. So I feel as though Gawn's not really going to change, and Grundy maybe won't score as much. Depends on how effective he is in Jackson's role, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can see it where it is quite 50-50 in the ruck load between Gawn and Grundy, where people are assuming that's going to happen, and then Gawn's score will obviously go down. But I'm to my belief, Grundy's recruited to do Jackson's role, and that won't affect Gawn's score at all. Really, I don't think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we can hope that as well. I think Gawn had a minor hamstring issue for a couple of weeks, but I haven't heard much about that affecting him too much longer. So I think he's right back out on the track, and we know he's one of the top professionals in the game, the captain of the Melbourne Footy Club, and he will be very important for them to sort of be right back into that premiership hunt for 2023. We've gone over. I guess you can quickly touch on Christian Petrarca. What sort of role do you expect him to play?
I think he's a smoky for the Brownlow, in my opinion. I genuinely think he's in for a huge year. Probably will be hard if he's not going to actually have as much midfield time if they're going to pursue with putting Pickett in there and maybe Brayshaw as well. So he'll probably be playing off half forward. He might be one I would probably just watch, keep your eye on. Don't really bite the bullet yet. He might be one that drops down in value and you can get him at a good time. Maybe there might be a touch wood, hopefully not, significant injuries in Melbourne's midfield, and Petrarca's going to have to be forced to play in that role for a bit more. But yeah, I think there's a good chance he plays a bit half forward. He's one. It's so hard to know because I personally, I think most Melbourne fans want him in the guts for majority of the time, but I don't know how, if we put him half forward, we're dropping a player who's probably playing the position he would play a bit better. So it's a bit hard to pick. I think it's one you stay away from and wait till he drops in value a bit, because 618, I feel like he can get to that price, but I don't think at this rate, and with the unknown, the price is a bit too much.
Yeah, agree. And we saw last year as well. I think it was available at like low 500s. So we could probably see at some point during the season where we could get him for 100K less. So I think it's just a pure upgrade target throughout the season. Now, you were speaking about that midfield rotation, more bodies getting involved in there. And another player that we saw towards the end of the home and away season was Angus Brayshaw spent a bit more time in the centre bounces. Now, I was actually pretty hot on him early, but I've gone a little bit off him just because of hearing that Cozzy Pickett's going to be spending quite a bit of time in there by the sounds of it. And then you've got all these blokes like Viney and Harms and Petrarca, Oliver, of course. And I just think, is Brayshaw going to get enough time in there to be he was a very consistent scorer last year, but is he going to get enough time in there? And do you expect Melbourne to play around with him a bit in terms of maybe he might tag a game or two, or he could be spending a bit of time at the half back line? What do you think?
I think it probably was a clause in his contract that he plays more midfield time. So there might be a chance where I have no idea, but I reckon that's probably what won him over to stay. So I think there'll be probably more opportunities midfield time, but again, like it sounds very arrogant, but I feel like we're looking pretty good in a lot of positions where it's a bit hard to just move people around. You're going to be making a few players unhappy, and the last thing we need is a mass walkout at the end of the year because we move too many magnets. So I don't know. He might play off half back. We might need him there with Salem's thyroid problem. He might be playing on the wing if Lockie Hunter doesn't work out there. He might be in the guts. He might even play half forward. He could ruck. Who knows? Who knows what Angus Brayshaw could do? So like, he's another one. He's like Petrarca. You have to almost wait to see what happens, maybe in the preseason or the early parts of the year, just to see how Melbourne are going to use him. But I look. We've seen he scores well off in the back line. He scores well on the wing, and he scores well in the gut. So, history shows he should be pretty good.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. You brought a very nice description. As I usually do, there will be some plays here where we don't really need to talk too much about that we can quickly bypass, like maybe someone like a Jack Viney, unless you think he can be can take his game to a whole new peg or two. Then I think we can bypass him, mate.
Yeah, I think that'll depend on if Oliver or Petrarca, not playing well or injured. I think Viney just has to sit under them. He can't really score well, unfortunately.
Yeah, great. He's capped with those two absolute superstars in that midfield. What an absolute 1-2 punch they are. Brodie Grundy. Now, you did say that Grundy was almost sort of recruited to maybe play that Jackson role. But I will say I didn't see too much of him being very versatile, which is why I was concerned about Gawn playing sort of that Jackson role for 2023. Do you think Grundy has the capability to move his way around the ground? I mean, he's in the prime of his career, I guess.
Yeah, I think Brodie Grundy can. I'm more worried about the injury that he sustained at Collingwood, if it's going to come back and affect that here at Melbourne. But like I said before with the Gawn thing, we could find it's a 50-50 role. And it's quite simple. If Gawn's not in the ruck, he's behind the ball, and Grundy's not in the ruck, he's down forward. But, they're really splitting it 50% in the ruck, which will make the scoring, I guess, a bit easier for both to accumulate, but it could also hurt them as well. They're missing important game time in areas that they're going to dominate and get more points. So he's one to watch. I mean, personally, I haven't gone. This is the first year I've gone without Gawn in my ruck, and I haven't even gotten Grundy in there to replace it because I just think they're going to cancel each other out, unfortunately. So, yeah, I in my personal opinion, stay away from Grundy and Gawn until we see what their roles really are.
Yeah, that's what I'm personally doing as well, mate. Think they're just there's just a little bit too much of the unknown with those two players, and you don't want to be spending up 622K on a ruck where you don't really know what the whole deal is. So, yeah, that's fair enough, mate. We can move on to Stephen May again. Had him in my 2021 team when he was really cheap, but he's an absolute gun one-on-one play, but that doesn't get you SuperCoach scores, does it, Zach?
No, it doesn't. But I think the fact that he does our kickouts might help when it comes to points.
Yeah, and
Racking
that's
up
what's
points.
yeah, absolutely, and that's what sorry for interrupting you there, but that's what separates
Probably.
him with other key defenders and that's why he's at a half decent price at 507K, where you compare like a Harris Andrews, Jacob Wiedering, where it's very different. He does take the kickouts and he can deliver an absolute belting score. But I think, yeah, I think there are some better starting picks out there. Ed Langdon, winger, doesn't really, wings don't particularly score too great, but have you got anything to change my mind there?
No, I can't change your mind on that. Although I think the guy who's going to play the opposite of his position, the other side of the wing, Lockie Hunter. I've heard that he's just being played not only as a winger but as an outside mid type player who's going to roll up to each stoppage. And he could be someone who just racks up the footy and just casually gets 30 touches purely because he's running around like a headless chook. He's just at every stoppage playing on the wing. So I mean, I've got Lockie Hunter in my team purely because I think he's just going to rack it up. And I think that's the kind of role he might play. And Ed Langdon might be just a bit more defensive wing role. So I think, yeah, maybe Langdon don't tank, but I'd take Lockie Hunter instead. For the price he's at, he might be someone who quickly racks up some cash until he gets tagged out of games, and then you can probably downgrade or upgrade him even further.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. I didn't particularly think of Lockie Hunter, but if that's the case and you know your stuff, you're a big D supporter, then he's one certainly to keep in mind. So uh, he was the real underrated pickup in the whole trade period, wasn't he? I think half the footy world didn't even know that Lockie Hunter went to Melbourne, but it just really flew under the radar, and he could be a very handy pickup. Harms, great bloke, but no, nah, bless him. James Jordan, 2021 SuperCoach rookie legend. But again, unless he's got a further role, then not too sure about that.
Nah, I wouldn't take him either.
No. And we were speaking just before the recording, Alex Neil-Bullen. You can share a bit of your wisdom if you want, mate. Can you talk us into this pick?
The more I think about it, the more I regret even saying that it was a smoky. I don't know. I had a little epiphany that playing a high half forward role, he might rack up a few posies, and he might be involved on the score sheet and score involvements. But come to think of it, when has a high half forward ever scored well in Supercoach? So I think, oh look, you could if whatever I've said is rings true to you and you like the idea of Neil Bull in your team, go for it. But don't come for me if he sucks. So
No, I don't think you've got to worry about that, mate. I won't be going near him. But if he was a Dustin Martin type where he could play high half forward and just rip apart games, but I'd need to see a bit more proof of that. Salem, shame what he's going through at the minute, but so we won't really talk about him. He's not really a starting pick, but a bloke who could take in a few of his posies off that half back line is Jake Bowie. Bowie. Is it Bowie? Bowie?
I say I think it is Bowie.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Can you talk us a bit over this play, mate? Because I think Bowie can certainly take the possessions off Christian Salem while he's out.
Yeah, he can if he plays Salem's role, there's a very good chance Bowie will be a really good defensive pickup, especially at his price. Because one thing is that I think Supercoach fans absolutely love is players when they're super efficient. They don't turn it over, and their stats are high 80s, high 90% kicking efficiency, and they're having 25 touches and 15 of those are kicks. That Jake Bowie is one of those who rarely misses a target. He's quite efficient with his disposal, and I feel as though if we're going to look at replacements, it's going to be between him and Rivers most likely for Salem's role. And I feel like when it comes to efficiency, Rivers isn't bad, but I think Bowie, that's why we recruited him, why we drafted him, just his ball use, his decision making, and it showed in his first. Can't even remember how many games he won straight, and he's a premiership player for a reason. So I don't think Bowie's a bad selection at all.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I remember that mental streak that he got on. Just wouldn't lose a game, but I think I could be wrong. Was his first loss again in that was it Fremantle at the G?
Yeah, it was against Freo at the G.
That's mental. Now there's a few blokes that we can quickly pass on over. Jake Lever, no.
No, no.
Tom Sparrow, anything different in his preseason or no?
He could have a breakout year. I think if you want to that's even like a tiny keep a tiny eye on him to see what happens. But no, I wouldn't. I don't think it's something you look at later on. I don't think he'll start off something you need from the start. Definitely not.
Yeah, fair enough. Tom McDonald, key forward, nope.
No.
Now we'll quickly touch on Cosy Pickett. I didn't think we would talk about this bloke heading into the preseason, but he is moving into a new role as sort of like, I don't know how much midfield time he'll get, but seems like he's going to have a variety of stoppages and probably playing off the forward line. So can you tell us about what he could be like as a midfielder?
I think as a midfielder, he's going to be electric. He's going to be hard to tackle. He's going to be breaking through stoppages, probably maybe even a clearance machine, winning the ball. I don't know. I feel as though logically for me, I think we're going to ease him into the midfield. There's a big talk. He's going to get more midfield time. That's probably going to be like 5% more. So, which is going to be overall, you're going to be like, well, did Cozzy ever play in the midfield?
Yeah.
So he's not. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot, purely because we have a lot of people who can play the midfield already. But I feel there might be times where, I mean, we did this in 2021 as well. Sometimes in 2022, we started the game first centre bounce, Cozzy's in it, just a bit of impact, just to bring a bit of oomph to start the game, lay a big hit, throw a bit of unpredictability, rest Petrarca or Oliver or Viney. So yeah, I think the midfield talk, just be careful with it. I don't think it's going to be a major increase, and I feel as though if we do a major increase, we're going to hurt him when it comes to confidence wise. And I feel as though our forward line's much better when Pickett's actually playing as a pressure forward rather than we're going to use him in the midfield, because I don't think we have a pressure forward like Cozzy in our team who could just replace that role. So, and look, it could be a little ploy just to get him to sign on. Who knows? So I hope we don't overdo it to a point where we ruin his confidence or we're hurting the team. And I believe we won't overdo it. So I don't think Pickett's one to pick up. Even at that price, it's tempting as a forward, and as a midfielder, you're probably going to quickly increase with a low break even like that at that price. But yeah, I wouldn't touch Pickett.
Yeah, that's a good explanation, mate. It sort of reminds me of sort of like, I'm not sure if there are any English Premier League fans watching, but it felt a bit like moving Declan Rice. I'm a West Ham fan, moving him higher up the pitch just so we could keep him for a couple of years. But it made us worse, to be honest. But anyway, we're not talking about West Ham. We're talking about Melbourne Footy Club. A few players here that actually there's plenty of these blokes that we can go past. Bailey Fritsch, talented goal scorer, not a SuperCoach player.
Yeah, correct. Very correct.
Michael Hibberd, to be honest, from what I can see, he's probably on his last legs these days, but he's had a great career.
Yeah.
Ben Brown, not even sure if he gets in the team, to be honest.
Oh, I think he gets in, but I wouldn't. Yeah, SuperCoach wise, no way.
Yeah. There's a few blokes here in the middle, bit of no man's land. Trent Rivers, I've seen in Western Australia, he's been training a little bit with. There's a WA trainer there that trains a lot of different players, but so maybe that could be a good thing for Melbourne, that he could have a great year. Luke Dunstan. I won't lie, I didn't even know he was still there. Harrison Petty. I'll tell you what, he made a late charge down forward. He could be interesting there if they pursue with that. Jake Melksham, again, job security is a bit iffy. Spargo, I thought he played actually half all right last year. Spargo, I thought he really improved. What do you think, Zach?
Oh, 100%. I think he's one of our most valuable forwards in the team. I think what people don't recognize sometimes when you're watching footy, a lot of players do some good things with the ball, and that's what you get shown on TV a lot, and it's what you remember. And that's easy. It's easier for me to remember those things as well. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think Spargo's work rate off the ball, and I think his decision making gets a really unnoticed a lot. I don't know. That's probably not going to do anything super coach wise, but for me as a fan, personally seeing what he does, how impactful he is with his kicking inside 50, his decision making, his ability to bring ball to ground in marking contests is huge and super influential. And I wish they were included in Supercoach because I'd be putting him in straight away as well.
Mate, I'll tell you what, I do think, I better not talk too much. Actually, I'm not that well known as Supercoach. Saving any articles I do with them and whatnot. But anyway, Spargo, yeah. So I think if there was a way in Supercoach where you could get more points for just the little 1%ers and all that, and I think he's a very good forward for sure. Adam Tomlinson, I think he wanted to leave, but he's still stuck there. Joel Smith, I heard he's injured, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I heard that he's part of the rehab group with Luke Dunstan, Jake Melksham, and a few others that didn't really get their names. But yeah, I don't know. He's more of a backup type role, which is where Tomlinson's at, which is funny. Only 2 years ago, that was Petty who was in that position. Now Petty's just a walk-up starter, and now
Absolutely.
Tomlinson's in that backup role. So it's funny how footy can change pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I guess this time 2 years ago, it didn't look anything like that. But footy changes pretty swiftly. Josh Shackey's the biggest backup option. If everything goes tits up, then he's an option, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see him play more forward. I think that's what he got drafted to be. That's what he got recruited to Bulldogs to be. And I can really see him being a pretty decent forward if he just gets cracking and gets a good preseason going. He might turn the corner.
Fair enough, Nate. Mate. So now we head into some interesting price territory. So this is mainly going to be for rookies, players that we haven't seen for a while, that sort of thing. I guess Matthew Jefferson, I don't think we have to worry about him. I think he's a long-term project. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he will be a long-term project. They like the look of him. I think in the recent intra-club, some fans were saying he was pretty quiet and then came out of nowhere and did a couple good things. But yeah, probably a long-term project. I mean, he's Victorian, so I guess the fear of if Van Rooyen goes really well and then leaves, like a Luke Jackson type, we've got a backup there that we're working on in developing. So, yeah, probably needs a bit more muscle. Needs to get used to, I guess, the bigger bodies, the more physical type side of footy. And yeah, I don't think a game for him will happen this year. Oh, look, we could get into a terrible situation where we need to put him in. Not saying he's bad, but I don't think at our best, I don't think Jefferson would be in the squad.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I think, yeah, I followed up a bit of the draft last year, and all I really saw was this bloke's going to take a couple of years to get going fully. But when he is fully ready to go, he'll be a very good player. So that's from what I've heard. A couple of these blokes interest me a little bit, and there's a couple of other blokes I've never really heard the name of, I'll be honest. But Kade Chandler, I remember Adelaide were big into him in 2021. Was that true? And have you heard anything in pre-season, mate?
Yeah, he's a South Australian boy, so
Oh, yeah,
I
makes
think
sense.
he was pretty close to going back home. I've heard that a lot of people are raving about him. Funny enough, playing that high half forward role I was talking about with Neil Bullen, he might be one that makes a bit of cash. I mean, at that price, he's at a rookie price, and he's been on our list for a fair few years now. So, he's someone who's almost, roll of the dice type. It's a big year for him. I think he might get a few games. Goody might try and squeeze him in just for the work he's done. And it's mainly been started, that work rate, from back end of last year, where he was building in some good form. He was getting some games. It's a sub. He's someone who could crack the team pretty early. He could play round one. He's one of those just around the mark. He's one, I'd probably chuck on the bench because he might play 4 or 5 games, make a bit of cash, and you're on your way. So,
Yeah, they'll be very interested to see because I'm sure if another club was chasing him, he's certainly got a bit of talent. Now I'm going to name some. I will come back to some of these names that the fans are pretty interested to hear your analysis. But I'll name these players, and can you tell me if you've heard anything or if they're close to round, if they could get a game, or you've heard anything in preseason? So Bailey Laurie.
I went to school with him. No, he's good. I reckon he's pretty close to a debut. Last year he was very close. He was in the emergencies a couple times. He's someone who could probably maybe crack in a spot. Again, I think most of these things, it's great. We've got young kids coming through who are looking ready to go. I mean, Van Roon is one of them. But I think at the stage we're in, I mean, I've never said this as a Melbourne supporter, but we're in that premiership window. It will be kind of detrimental if we're just going to force kids into the squad when they're not only if they're just not ready, but also if the team's not ready, if we don't need it as of yet. And I've got a feeling Bailey Laurie's very close. But I think a lot would have to go his way when it comes to maybe injuries or poor form in the seniors for some of those players in those roles where he would get an opportunity. But again, another one to keep your eye on for a debut this year, definitely.
Absolutely, mate. What about Andy Moniz Wakefield? I don't know much about him and haven't heard much about him.
Yeah, he's someone I think needs just a little bit more time. But again, I was saying the same thing at the start of last year with Bailey Laurie, and I didn't think at the end of the year I'd be saying he's a chance for a debut pretty soon. And getting in the emergencies quite a bit. So look, this might be Moniz Wakefield's year where he breaks out and does quite a few good things. And I think when you see with most players around the comp, year 2 or year 3 in the reserves is when they really start to hit their strides. The physicality starts to become a bit more known to them. They feel more comfortable. This is when their talent starts to show, and then they're able to find ways to get into the senior squad, and usually don't fall out. They stay in there. So look, Moniz Wakefield, he's probably someone I wouldn't say would get a debut this year. I mean, things could happen that lead to that, but he is someone, I think almost next year I would say keep an eye on for, definitely for a debut.
It's great to hear, mate. There's certainly a few blokes here that I don't know too much of, so hopefully you can give me a little bit more detail. Deacon Smith.
He's part of the rotation of like Bowie, Rivers, Salem, all that role. So he's got a lot of people he's got to get through to try and crack into the team, playing that defensive position. But he's one of those who'll rack up the ball, rack up possessions, and quite efficient when coming out of the back line. So look, if he gets a game, he's definitely one I would try to pick up on if you need a downgrade to somebody to free up some money, because he was most likely going to be quite efficient, and he's quite skillful, very athletic, can take a hanger as well. So yeah, he's pretty decent player.
That sounds pretty. That's a pretty good rap sheet you have for him, mate. If he can get a game at some point, then I think certainly he could look to be maybe a downgrade target. Daniel Turner, I believe, was a mid-season pick. Zach?
Yeah, he was. I think a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. And then, actually, it was not last year. He made his debut last year, Queen's birthday. He plays that kind of Stephen May, Jake Lever, Harrison Petty role. One of those like key defenders, plays off him. Bloody hell, this guy's courageous. He just goes in, not even a care in the world of what happens to him. I mean, I like the look of him after one game, and hopefully, if he can crack in to the squad, and if he's getting into the team, then we must be a pretty good team. So if he's finding his way into the team and playing good form, then we must be pretty good. So
Yeah, that's very nice, mate. Taj Wooden.
yeah, I'm big on him. Ever since he got drafted, just watching his like footage of him playing, I thought this guy's going to be real sick. He's going to be really good. I think it's year 2 or year 3 for him now, in the system. So I've got a feeling he could potentially push for a debut. I mean, I think the luxury is there's about 4 or 5 guys on here that could definitely push for a debut, and if not this year, then next year, most definitely. So he's another one that Melbourne fans are probably wanting to really get a game, purely because his dad won a Brownlow with the club. So it would be pretty nice to see that as well. But I think this guy's got talent, a real classy half forward, got pace, very agile around goals, and has a knack of finding the 2 big sticks as well. So yeah, I think that's one to watch as well.
Yeah, good to hear, mate. I won't lie, we've because I don't have premium of Zoom, we've only got 5 minutes left, so we'll quickly zoom through some of these rookies. If there's anything you can tell me about Jed Adams, Kaya Farris White, Oliver Seston, Will Verrill, and Kai Turner, is there anything noteworthy about those 5?
I don't think many of them will get a game this year. But Kai Turner we just picked up, and he went the unconventional way to getting on the AFL list. He was a VAFA player, and he was part of the SSP program. So, and there's a lot to like about him. Apparently, his competitiveness, his ability to adjust to the AFL system after not really playing in a system that's as high or close to the level of AFL is something that the club noticed was pretty impressive. So he could be a surprise bolter, maybe towards the back end of the year that just sneaks in a game, and he would be more of a defender.
Yeah, good to hear, mate. Thanks for the summary with that. Kai Turner, I do remember seeing on Twitter when he got signed for the D's. Now, so we've got about 4.5 minutes, so we just need maybe a 30-second summary on, I want 3 rookies that we've got left here. Blake Howes, can you give us 30 seconds on what he's about?
If Lockie Hunter stinks it up, he'll get a game. Promise you that. This guy looks good. He'll be playing wing as well. He's classy, is like so classy. I genuinely believe, like they said in the draft when we picked him up, he slid. He was meant to be taken much higher. He's tall, he's athletic, got great skills, really good endurance. I'm hoping he gets a game this year because I really like the look of him.
Yeah, that's great, mate. Yeah, I remember he was an absolute slider in the 2021 draft, I believe, and I wouldn't have minded if my Hawkers picked him up. But we'll see if we can see a bit more from him next for this coming season. Another one that I recently just heard a little bit of nice news about is Judd McVee. Can you talk a little bit, 30 seconds about him?
Yeah, I'm the same. I only heard recently that he's actually impressed everyone a lot coming back into this is his 2nd season. Last year, from what I saw at Casey, he didn't really do much to impress me, or didn't really do much that made me think he's going to be close to a game. Looked like someone definitely young and is still developing, needs a bit more time, but it looks like he's, taking leaps and bounds towards a round, I wouldn't say round 1 debut, but an early debut this year, potentially in that back line, especially with Salem being injured. So yeah, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. And if everything continues to go upwards throughout the season as it has through preseason, very good chance for a debut.
That's great to hear, mate. Now, the last play I'll talk to you about, then I'll give you then you'll tell me the prediction for your days this season. Jacob Van Rooyen, I only want you to answer two things. One, is he going to play? Is he round one, best 22? And number two, what role is he going to be?
For round one, it purely depends on how we go against the Saints on Friday, how he plays, and how we go against Richmond the following week. If he's lighting it up and he's playing the role that, and this answers your second question, that Ben Brown's going to be playing or Tom McDonald's going to be playing, I feel like he's going to be playing one of those two roles, most likely Ben Brown's role. If he's playing it better than Ben Brown, you can put your house on it. He will play round one. He's been ready since like round 10 last year. And we've just waited and waited and waited. So I feel as though it really depends. There's two massive games for him this preseason, and he has to basically play better than Ben Brown, and he'll play round one, in my opinion. I'm glad the club never rushed him. All the fans wanted to play him leading up to finals, wanted him playing in finals and not Ben Brown. And we probably need to play him because this guy's so good that he might get annoyed if we don't play him this year, and he might want to go home. So, and back to WA. So we don't want that. So, yeah, I think Supercoach wise, he might score pretty good for a youngster. Especially if he's fitting in the same side as Ben Brown. He might be playing a role that turns him into getting more of the ball, being more efficient. But it looks like it's going to be Ben Brown's role, and Ben Brown's role doesn't really accumulate points. So, but aside from Supercoach, he looks good. He looks great. Looks exciting.
That's great to hear, mate. Sorry to hold you up there, but this is about to end. So thank you guys for watching.
All good.
I'll put in the comments what his prediction is, and I'll see you guys in the next team preview. Cheers.